Hi you guys, this video lesson is on adding and subtracting positive and negative decimals. So before you start the video, make sure that you have this worksheet. Okay, this is the one that we are going to be working on, and I am going to help you with some of them on the worksheet, and I want you to follow along, and then I want you to show me once you have gone through the video and you've done all of the examples that I have asked you to do with me, and then I'm going to have you finish the rest of the assignment, and then you will correct it and then turn it in. Okay, now adding and subtracting decimals isn't any different than adding and subtracting integers in the way that you think about it. Okay, so remember when you are adding integers, we talked about the fact that if your integer is positive, that was like having money, and if your integer was negative, that was like owing money. And the first thing that you do is you figure out when you combine them if you're going to have or if you're going to still owe, and then you figure out how much. Okay, so we're going to do that same thing with these two rational numbers. So we have a 5.4 plus a negative 9.7. This is number 1 on your worksheet. Okay, so if we have 5.4 and we owe 9.7, okay, we can see that when we combine these, we are still going to owe. So we know in the end our answer is going to be negative, and to figure out how much we owe, we're going to take the 9.7 and we are going to subtract the 5.4. And when you subtract decimals, when you add them or subtract them, you have to make sure that you line up the decimals. So 7 minus 4 is 3. The decimal comes straight down. 9 minus 5 is 4. So your answer would be a negative 4.3. Let's go ahead and look at number 3 on your worksheet. Okay, on number 3, we have a negative 0.5, so that means we would owe, and then we have a positive 0.3, so that means that we would have. And when we look at these, we know that 0.5 is bigger than 0.3, so the owing amount is more than the having amount. Okay, so when we combine these, we're still going to owe, and to figure out how much, you take the 0.5 and you subtract the 0.3, and the decimal comes straight down, and that would give you negative 0.2. Okay, let's go ahead and look at number 4. The last two examples that I gave you were in adding a positive integer and a negative integer. In this example, you can see that we're adding two negative integers together. Okay, so if we think about this in terms of money, if you owe and you owe, when you combine those two, you're still going to owe. So whenever you have a negative added to another negative, your answer will always be negative. And to figure out what that answer is, you're going to add 4.79 and 0.4. Notice in this case, I line up the decimals. I would put a 0 right here, and now I just add 9 plus 0 is 9, 7 plus 4 is 11, 1 plus 4 is 5, and my decimal comes straight down, and then we know that our answer is negative, so negative 5.19. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at a few examples of how to do subtraction with decimals. So doing subtraction with decimals is just like doing subtraction with integers. So remember, I always want you to change your subtraction to addition. Okay? So if the problem is addition, you leave it addition. But if you are faced with a problem that's subtraction, you are going to change it to addition by doing or following the same change. Okay? So keep the same, change, and then change again. So let's go ahead and do that on this problem. We're going to keep the 2.2 the same. We're going to change the subtraction to addition, and we're going to change the positive 7.3 to a negative 7.3. And now we just have addition. And you guys know how to do addition really well. So if you only have 2.2 and you owe 7.3, you can see that the owing amount is bigger than the having amount. So when you combine those, you're going to end up having a negative answer. And to figure out what that answer is, we have to take the 7.3, subtract the 2.2, we line up the decimal comes straight down. 3 minus 2 is 1, 7 minus 2 is 5. So our answer would be a negative 5.1. Okay, let's go ahead and look at number 12 for our next one. It's another subtraction problem. Remember, with subtraction problems, you keep, change, change. So as we look at this, we're going to keep this one the same. We're going to change this to an addition, and we're going to change this to a positive. Okay, so now we're just adding a negative 8.1 and a positive 8.9. In this case, our owing amount is smaller than our having amount. Okay, so when we combine those, we're going to have, so we know our answer is going to be positive, and to figure out how much we're going to have, we just take the 8.9, we subtract the 8.1, which leaves us with 0.8. So our answer would be a positive 0.8. And remember, you don't have to put the positive sign. You can have it just be 0.8, and that is positive 0.8. Okay, let's go ahead and look at the next one. This is another subtraction problem. So remember, with subtraction, we always change our subtraction to addition. So to do that, we're going to keep, change, change. So we keep the first one the same, we change the subtraction to addition, and we change the positive 8.9 to a negative 8.9. Okay, now when we look at these, we can see that we owe and we owe. So whenever you have two negative numbers and you're adding them together, you're always going to get a negative answer. Because if you owe and then you owe more, well, that's going to be owing a lot. Okay, so to figure out how much we owe, we take the 8.9, we add the 3.9, we line the decimals up, and we get 12.8. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at one more subtraction example. This is number 17. Remember, whenever we have subtraction, we're going to change that subtraction to addition by doing keep, change, change. Okay, so as you look at this one, we keep this one the same, we change the subtraction to addition, and we change the negative number to a positive number. Okay, so in this case, we end up having and having. Both of these end up being positive. So to figure out how much we have, we add the two together. So 17.9 plus 19.4 would be 37.3. Okay, so I want to go ahead and do one more example for you. This is number 30. Now, number 30 is a mixture of subtraction and addition. Okay, so remember, whenever you see subtraction, you are going to change that to addition. And then if it's addition, you just leave it as addition. Okay, so on this one, we have a negative 5.6 subtract a negative 12.6. So let's go ahead and change that first. So we're going to keep, change, change. And then we have an addition of negative 6.6, which we're totally just going to leave the same because it's already addition. Okay, now let's start with the negative 5.6 and the positive 12.6. So this is owing, this is having. So to figure out how much you're going to have between the two of these, you take the 12.6, you subtract the 5.6, and you get 7.0. Okay? Now this is a positive 7 because our having amount is more than our owing amount. So now we have a positive 7 that we are going to add with a negative 6.6. So if we have 7 and we owe 6.6, when we combine those, we're going to end up having, so our answer is going to be positive. And to figure out how much, We line these up and we subtract. Now, the decimal for the 7 goes right after the 7. So this would be 7.0. Now when we subtract, we have to borrow from the 7, make it a 6. This becomes a 10. So we're left with 0.4. Okay, so now you guys are ready to come back, show me that you followed along with each of the example problems, and then I want you to finish this assignment, and then I want you to click on the answer key, and I want you to correct it. And if there are any that you missed, I want you to go back and fix those. And if there are any that you're having questions about, I want you to come back and ask me for some help with these. And once you have finished your assignment, you've corrected it, you've fixed all the ones that you miss, turn it in to me so I can add it to the gradebook, and then you can move on to your next activity.